Washington adds 3 more commits.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into another bonus edition of the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Roman Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. He's site editor with Athlon Sports' Inside the Huskies. I'm the site editor with Huskies Wire. Thank you for making this your first watch or first listen of the day, as we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Lars, we're coming at the everydayers on this Sunday morning because Washington got 3 commits since the last time we sat down and recorded a podcast. We had the Jacob Manu one. We did that one early, had it ready to go. So we were like, hey, we know there's a couple things in the works. Let's let it all play out. And then we'll jump on here, make sure we can give the everydayers a recap before Monday morning, because there's probably some more things in the works. So let's leave that as it is. So we're going to get into the commits in the order that they came in. So first up is USC tight end Kade Eldridge. Lars, I love this take.
I do too. And I think, it's kind of an interesting situation in Washington at tight end, because you look and think you have Austin Simmons and Baron when they coming in 25. So you got 2 freshmen plus Charlie Kroll as another. So that's 3, call it redshirt, first or second year players.
Yeah.
But and the reason why I say that separate group, because Decker DeGraff is kind of, a sophomore, but almost feels like a junior at this point, where he's a guy that really
consensus freshman All-American. Like, yeah, absolutely.
And so really seems like he's kind of, if I were to say, because if you're going to divide it in half, you have the upperclassmen of not Kate Otten, Ryan Otten still on the roster.
Right.
Quentin Moore, who could come back because of the injury given this how the season went, I would imagine, he would come back. It sounds like all indications are he will. And so that gives you kind of a solid mix, because Kade was in that in-between, where I know fans have kind of pushed back saying, oh, wow, a guy that did nothing at USC. It's like, well, first of all, Lincoln Riley, got to keep the context in mind here. So there's a few things. And then how the tight end is used in Lincoln's offense is not necessarily the same. I mean, also, by the way, Deuce Robinson, former 5-star tight end / wide receiver, also entered the portal, this in the same time that Eldridge did. So it's not like, oh, this was Kade, kind of just getting ushered out and, what's the word we like to use? Processed out, you
right.
kind of, those sort of things, where it wasn't that, it was just, okay, and Arizona, by the way, didn't offer him when he was coming out of high school. So all these kind of factors play into play, where it's Washington needed the younger tight end with a couple of years of experience and also a couple of years still to go. And a guy who could be his, kind of breakout season for all intents and purposes, because he has 3 catches for 19 yards otherwise.
So I like where you're going with that. Another thing on there, local guy, Linden Christian High School. You love seeing those local guys come home, that sort of thing. I look at this and I see a big, multiple projectable body, where we look at all tight ends and it's, oh yeah, of course he's athletic. Of course he's this, of course he's that. Right. And yeah, all those things certainly apply here. But when I look at Kade, it's exactly what you said, Lars. You look at it and you see all the traits that you need without the, hey, we need you to take on a huge workload right away. Where you and I both know what Jordan Papao can do for a tight end prospect. We've seen it time and again. Look at Kaleki Latu's progression over the course of his senior year. We saw him really improve as a blocker, improve as a pass catcher, improve in just the way he was able to rack up yak. Like everything you want to see from a tight end, he did all those things in 2024. So I love that. I think that's all really great. And then on top of it, you're not going to ask him, you talk about Decker DeGraff, you're not going to come in and ask him to, hey, we need you to play a huge amount of snaps right away. You talk about Ryan Otten, you talk about Charlie Kroll. Those are guys who are coming off of injuries. And then on top of that, Quentin Moore is also coming off an injury. We expect him to be back. We expect him to, contribute in a significant way, where he's probably going to end up being a really great blocking tight end. We saw what Decker can do in that, sort of move tight end role this past season. And then you don't need to, I love Baron. I think he's going to be a fantastic player for this team. Austin Simmons is somebody who we like the upside. We like the projectability. Now you don't need him to play right away. It's easier to ask him to redshirt. So you look at all those things and you say, all of a sudden the depth is there exactly how you want it to be. And if Baron plays his way into the rotation, great. If Kade is able to play his way into the rotation as well, he's going to be listed as a sophomore, great. These are all things that you want to see. You want to see the best players win out. And it's one of those things where we're going to get to spring practice, and all of a sudden that depth that we didn't see at tight end last year, which is a really important part of this offense for Jedd Fisch, it's going to look a lot different, which is really nice. Lars, next up, Arizona defensive lineman Ta'ita'i Uiagaleilei. right after a message from our friends over at Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and help lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals that you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. For me, one of the best features is that subscription tracker I've used to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future, no more stressing about the budgeting every month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your finance goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockdown today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockdown. Again, rocketmoney.com/lockdown. So Lars, next person on the list, Arizona defensive lineman Ta'ita'i Uiagaleilei. This is a really great take because this isn't somebody who we expect to play on the interior full time, where one of the biggest things we saw from Washington's edge rushers this year, especially after the injury to Zach Durfee, was I don't want to say failure, but just an inability to be really physical against the run because they didn't have that, big body type on the edge with Voitanufi playing on the interior a lot. He certainly improved a lot against the run, but with Ta'ita'i and the way he was used down at Arizona, he's going to be a really nice, rotational pass rusher as well. But when I look at him, I say, first and foremost, this is that big physical body at 6'4", 280 that you need on the edge to defend the run in the Big Ten.
Absolutely. The craziest part about it is had 6 more pressures than the next closest Husky.
Yeah.
And Sebastian Valdez. And so just just right away, that kind of jumps out to me saying, look, you look at the other 2 additions you've had along the defensive line, Sione Pepa and Interior Thompson, and now you bring in Uiagalelei, and it's like, okay, now you see that 3-headed trio that we had been talking about where who's that third guy? How does that third guy fit into the mold? And I really think that's kind of the perfect summation of the two, where you can play him as a 3-tech on the edge. You can play him a D-tackle, or you can figure out different sort of things for whichever defensive coordinator is going to be to, kind of utilize and mix and match. Because as we saw in the Big Ten this year, you need the bodies, but it's not going to be the same on a week in, week out basis like it was in the Pac-12, which is, hey, look, 3 out of every, let's say probably 2 out of every 9 conference games you're playing is tough running back. The other 7 are mostly passing quarterbacks and, passing offenses where you're really kind of changing the scheme. In the Big Ten, you might have, as we saw this season, 6 of one and 6 of the other. It's like you just half and half, kind of divide the schedule in that way. Next year works out a little bit kind of like that, where, offense is kind of doing similar things. But either way, it's about getting the bodies and the versatility, kind of keeping those 2 things where Voy was in that mold, but I think now you're getting the bigger version. You're getting a bigger, at 6'4", 280, like you mentioned. Right? As much as we love Voy, that 6 foot, 255, you can only do so much with that. Voy certainly exceeded what he could do with his frame, but now you kind of get those more Big Ten style frames, which is exactly what Washington needed.
Right. Where Voy did play a little bit heavier this year, where he was back up 275, 280, whatever it ended up being, but it wasn't in that, super run defender heavy mold where, when we talk to him, it's, hey, I do feel more confident on the interior playing that 3-tech as a pass rusher. And he did a really good job at that. We saw him, utilized on offense a little bit as well, where this is that perfect body where the way I think about this is in a lot of those early Big Ten games, and we asked Jedd Fisch about it, and he was pretty straight up where it's, hey, we didn't see Isaiah Ward, a lot against Rutgers, against Iowa, against some of these teams. And he was like, yeah, that's his skill set is not defending the run. It's not what we brought him here to do. That's just not where he is right now with his frame being 230, 235, whatever it was. You needed some guys in this mold. That's why they brought in Deshaun Lynch. That's why they brought in some of these guys. And we didn't necessarily see him as much as you and I might have assumed, especially in the preseason either. So bringing in a guy like Ta'ita'i who can also get after the passer. You said it was 45 pressures over the last 2 years. So seeing these numbers are really promising where it's not, the big high upside take. Not high upside. It's not the big top rank take is what I want to say. Where, you look at some of these guys and it's a bummer you missed out on a guy like a Xe'ree Bledsoe on the interior, but this is not because I think they would have tried to take both either way, where we're going to see him a lot more on the edge, in my opinion. And then, especially if you and I have talked about Robert Bala being a primary candidate for defensive coordinator, or if you keep the Steve Belichick system in place, you run those 0 down lineman fronts on 3rd and long. Ta'ita'i Uiagaleilei is the perfect guy to plop in the middle and that 0 technique on 3rd and long. So I'm really curious to see how that's going to work out. I like this take. And Lars, there's one more from Saturday, and that's UCF linebacker Xe'ree Alexander, which we'll get to right after a message from our good friends over at FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score. It's thrilling. But not only can you bet on who will win the game, FanDuel has other bets for so many. For me, Michael Penix, Sunday, slamming all the overs. That Giants defense is not great. They got a couple of nice pass rushers. I like this Atlanta offensive line, but Lars and I, we love Michael Penix. We love everything that he brings to the table. I think he's going to throw for over 300 yards. I know Lars said the same thing right before we hit record. We're so excited to watch him play for the first time. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Lars, Xe'ree Alexander, local kid from Kennedy Catholic High School, starts his career at Idaho, goes to Central Florida for the 2024 season. After losing Kamori House to North Carolina, this is a really nice take. When you watch the film, when you look at his production, this is the kind of guy with a couple years of eligibility remaining that's going to be a really, really nice piece for the middle of this defense.
Yeah, when you love the size. I mean, as much as we talk about Jacob Manu at 5'11", you get 6'2", 223. What do we say? Like the Carson Bruner mold right there. And the fact that it's a former in-state guy, kind of a perfect leg for trade off in that mold where, this past season, I'm trying to kind of frame how I want to say this. Alfonso and Carson kind of reset the mold and brought back the, not necessarily the death row style, but kind of brought back the, what Ben Burke-Kirby had for a while there. Because at linebacker, it's you had guys where it was Eddie and everything like that, but it didn't hit the same. It didn't feel, because the way Chuck Morrell ran the defense, it was more in the back half of the secondary and those sorts of things. It didn't really kind of seem like, the Azim Victors, the Keyshawn Berrios in the mold. And so now getting kind of all these different types of linebackers in the mold, and I think, potentially the question becomes, do you add one more? And I think they do. For that same reason you mentioned with Kamori, you probably get one more guy with experience in that room. But with or without him, you look at this addition, and it's productive Idaho. Goes across the country to the Big Ten and also levels up, by the way. Go to the Big 12 at UCF. Yep. Checks that box as well. And so for me, it's a guy that has impact, and you're not worried about, it's coming from Idaho all the way up to, because again, it's no slight to that.
Right.
Idaho. Again, shout out to Thomas Ford again. But it's just, when you don't have that level up concern, it's this is a plug and play guy.
So I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's one of the most important things for me, where, we talked about with Kade Eldridge, getting that local experience, that passion for the program is always awesome. But on top of that, having a year of Power 4 experience, especially a linebacker under your belt, is great. Where we've talked about Jacob Manu, and it is right to, bring up his injury concern as well, where he's coming off a non-contact knee injury that he suffered against Colorado. We don't expect him to be ready for spring practice. We'll see how that plays out, but I fully expect him to be ready for the start of the season, especially from when the injury happened and everything like that. So that's something we're going to monitor, but having, just an extra guy in the mix, maybe bringing in one more, something we're going to be keeping an eye on real close, but just having somebody with that production where it's not like, he was a super underutilized rotational player who had this, that, or whatever. No, he had 68, 70 tackles, something in that range this past season. I know it's 6 for loss. So he's got enough production where it's, if you want to level up to the Big Ten, that's fine. And if you need him to start, great. If you need him to be part of the rotation, great. Where, we're going to see what Zedrius Randy-Saleh looks like. Jonathan Epperson, Donovan Robinson, Devin Bryant, Hayden Moore. The rotation is there where this is a perfect guy to fit into it, where it's, if he needs to take 65, 70% of the snaps while you work these other guys in, that's fine. If he comes in and he's, taking 50% of the snaps because you like what Zedrius brings to the table, you think Donovan Robinson is somebody who's ready to play early on in his career, that's fine. It's, it's somebody that, if you want Jacob Manu to play a whole lot because you trust him and you know what he brings to the table experience-wise because he's played for you for a couple of years, that's also great. There are a lot of really interesting ways that this can work out. And like you said, Lars, They might not be done at linebacker either. These are all things we're monitoring very, very closely throughout the day, throughout the week. So where do all the everydayers need to be? Right here on Locked On Huskies. Lars, as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you all everydayers for tuning in and joining us on this Sunday morning. We really do appreciate it. Please make sure for all those extra bonus episodes like this one and all the full episodes that we're going to have coming for you throughout the week. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcast, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple News, Amazon Music. We're there. We're everywhere. We're updating this channel with new content every single day. So make sure you click that like button, click that little bell so you don't miss when we post a new video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, drop them right down below in the comment section. And if you're audio only, please leave us 5-star reviews. It does help us out a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you on Monday.